Today is all about splitting, stacking, and storing up firewood that we're going to use to heat our house for an entire year. We have a whole bunch of wood over here that's been cut up into about 16 to 18 inch lengths. I still have some to cut up still here with the chainsaw later. Got a whole bunch of firewood back over there. Got some pallets over there that we're going to put the wood on. And we've got all of this wood right over here that also needs to be split and stacked. I'm thinking this wood over here alone, we've got about 3 full cords just right here. What I decided to do this year, which is different from all of the past years, is to use these really large pallets to store the wood on to keep it off the ground. These pallets right here I got for free from a company that didn't need them anymore. I actually got 3, there's 2 here, and they're 12 feet long this way, and then they're about 4 feet across, a typical pallet width. So what we can do is fit 1 full cord here, 4 feet wide, 4 feet high, 8 feet in length. Of course, fit another one right here and another full cord on that end over there. If you're wondering what this is underlayment that you would put underneath your roof. Keep these pallets living longer and having a longer life because eventually they're going to rot out and they need to be replaced. I decided to put this on right here. So there is nothing better than wood heat in the winter in cold climates like Wisconsin. Any cold climate where it gets bitterly cold from December through March into April, you want to have a good source of wood heat, at least as a backup, if not your primary source of heat like we have. So this is going to be our 5th year heating our house at this property. And what I've noticed over those years is that because of the wood stove we have, because of the wood that we use, which makes a big difference, and because of the type of house we have, a small house that's older and a little drafty, we go through about 5 full cords of firewood a year to heat our home. I mentioned earlier that we can fit 3 full cords of firewood right here where I'm standing, which begs the question, what are we going to do with all of the other firewood? And right now, I really don't know. This is the first year I've done this, so we're just going to have to see. It's going to be quite the experiment considering that we've got all these logs cut to length that need to get split. My recommendation is at least 1 more full cord of firewood than you think you need. It's going to take a couple of years to develop a system where you know how much firewood you need. There's some people out there that say cut twice as much wood as you think you need. That might be overkill, especially if you're really busy. There's nothing wrong with getting ahead for next winter. So whatever we don't burn this winter, we just burn the following winter. Doesn't harm anything as long as it's stored properly. So once we get this filled up with 3 cords, I'll have to find another place, maybe in between some trees, stacked up against a building somewhere. So our little house here, when we bought it, did not come with an outdoor space. To take matters into my own hands, I built this deck with a roof, which is super nice because before I had this, we had just 2 steps that went right into the house that was like right into the kitchen, and it was just not good. Taking your boots off, putting your coat away. So having a space like this that you can eventually enclose if you want to and add insulation and have a nice little space is really cool. Is because I wanted a place where we could store firewood near the house, but not in the house, that my wife could grab and just put in the wood stove easily without having to head over to the wood pile where I'm currently storing the wood. And then this isn't quite finished yet. What I plan on doing with this is putting some kind of shelf on here so we can set things on there. The deck that's behind me right here is a 12 by 16 foot deck. Pretty good size, especially for a small house. Previously there was this cement slab that was cracked and it just wasn't good. It needed to go. So we had that taken out with an excavator, created a big mess. But we decided to build a deck over top of where that was, and that was a really good decision because it's a really nice outdoor space. I decided to build this little wood rack right here. It's 8 feet long. It's about 4 feet tall, which is the exact size of a face cord. It might take an hour or a half an hour to fill this up once a week. And it's also good because it's right next to the door, and we have these eaves that hang off over top of the house about 2 feet that should keep this dry unless it's really windy and rainy and snowy. I might have to cover this with a tarp temporarily, but I don't see that being too big of an issue this year. And to give you a better perspective of why this firewood rack is right here, it's because the door is right next to it, and then you can see the chimney up there with our wood stove in our living room. So everything's kind of just connected. I know that there's a big thing about wearing leather gloves or even like rubberized gloves when you're working with firewood, but of all the years I've been doing firewood, by splitting, cutting, hauling, stacking, whatever, I've actually gotten one splinter in that entire time. For some reason, I cannot stand wearing gloves when I'm working at all with anything, whether it's building projects, firewood, hunting, fishing, doing anything. It just seems like it gets in the way. I had to start out with some leather mittens this morning because my hands were really, really cold. And then I gradually went to like these rubberized working gloves. And then I had to take my jacket off and then my hat. So the progression just happens. But when it's beautiful out like this, you can't complain. There isn't too much wind. I have to get up 4 feet with this firewood once it's on the pallet, and then of course fill in the rest of the pallet. I started making the mistake earlier on, and maybe you've done this too when you stack in large quantity like this rather than in rows, is that I was stacking kind of on the edge and I wasn't thinking about the middle section, which is a problem because then obviously once the edge gets really high you can't reach into the middle section. So I kind of had to reconfigure and focus in on the middle section. So it's eventually going to get about 4 feet high. I'm going to start in the back corner and work over toward the rest of the pile of wood off to the left over here. And then eventually we're going to have 3 full cords right here. And then I have to decide what we're going to do with all the other firewood that I have. I have started to split some wood that's not real great. It's starting to rot, as you can tell. So I've got it in my cart here, my little hand cart that I use for hauling wood around the yard. This stuff is going to be much better in a fire pit outside, which we'll use rather than burning inside the house. I have to finish up this pile, that large pile over there, little mini pile there, and a couple of logs I still need to cut up. So when we started the video, there was a huge pile of wood that needed to be split from that pallet all the way on the side over there, leading up to where this wood splitter is here. So if we back out a little bit, you'll see that entire space is clear right now, which leaves, at least from the main pile right now, let's go in and you'll see this. Got this wood right here that needs to be split still. And apparently I missed one that I needed to cut before, so I'll have to cut that up with the chainsaw as well as a few other logs. But this is basically what we're working with. It's a much more manageable pile. I'm pretty sure there's more than 3 cords here. Let's go look at my stacking job. This is the way you properly stack wood. Cross stack them using half pieces. Half pieces like this rather than quarter pieces like this. It's just a lot easier. And then in between, you can kind of stack it however you want. Doesn't really matter. But I made a mistake on the other end because I was probably going too fast and not really thinking. Now on this end, I did not use half pieces. Sometimes I did, like here, but I certainly did not right here. It's not the end of the world, but using half pieces is much better for getting a good stack of cross stacking on the end. We did accomplish quite a bit, and now we need to get, of course, up in height over here and fill in this area over here. I'm basically starting in that back far corner and working my way this way up to this corner right here. Make sure you join me for my next video where I'm going to share with you how I cover the wood that I have stacked over there once I finally have all of it stacked. I also need to tackle this big mess right here and make sure that's good and done. Hopefully for the first time it snows, but you never know here in Wisconsin. It is getting late in the fall. And I'm going to take you down by the river where I've got some other firewood stacked currently, but it's not split. I'm going to explain why it's down by the river and why it's not up here. We're going to go down there together in the pickup truck, get that firewood, split it up, bring it up here to stack for the winter. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time.